Yeah, I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, then never mind. What am I here?
Okay.
Why am I here?
Okay. He's awesome. Jason is awesome. He's lifted me up. Jason has done this before. I've never done this before. So Jason has really been a good support. So before we need to move on. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. He is from Sagin First Nation. He is Anishinaabe, and he's been in politics for many, many years. He's also a professor on First Nations governance and leadership at the University of Winnipeg, and he is sharing a presentation with you on governance, sovereignty, and law. Please give him a warm welcome, Jerry Fontaine. Jerry Fontaine, can you come up to the podium? Where is he? I thought he was sitting at that table over there. Did he leave? He should be around. Nanundua, can you find Jerry? Okay. So while we're waiting for him, whoops. So while we're waiting for him, just a reminder that the common theme of this gathering is lifting each other up, sovereignty, inherent right, jurisdiction over the well-being of our children, and addressing systems in the child welfare. And we have individuals from all over Turtle Island here. I met some good people from Prince Edward Island, and I know that some of them have to leave soon. I've met some people from BC, Northern Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Southern Manitoba. Do we have people from Quebec? I haven't met anybody from Quebec yet. Anybody in the house from Quebec? No? Okay. We have people from Alberta. Anybody from Yukon? Northwest Territories? Okay. So I see that Jerry's just sat himself down. So I'd like to welcome Jerry Fontaine. Can you give him a warm welcome, please? This for your presentation?
No, just that.
Okay. And some water.
Anin bonjour. Makogima indigoni. Makwanda totem. Ojibwenish navenin. Sakatong donji pa. Miigwech dana kina ma pindek nungom. Chikegu anisha abenun chiok. Miigwek pidaban. These children are the future. They represent the new dawn, the new horizon for us. I'm really having difficulty with the lights, They're really incredibly bright. I want to begin by first saying miigwech to all of you that are here. Miigwech to the organizers for making this event, this forum possible. And as I said, children, boy, they're important. Families are important. And what I see, what I hear is, the child and the family are being strangled by a system that really doesn't understand our people in the first place. So I want to speak a little about that this morning, but I also want to acknowledge a number of people that I've come to know over the years. By way of introduction, my name is Jerry Fontaine. I'm from Saging. Ojibwe Anishinaabe community just northeast of here, for those of you that don't know where Saging is. I was an Indian Act chief in the late 80s, 1980s, throughout the 1990s. And I say Indian Act chief because I was elected under the Indian Act. I know that we have some representatives from custom councils, so I want to acknowledge and show my respect and give my respect to you. I also want to acknowledge a number of leadership men, women, that I grew up admiring and respecting, because of the work and the commitment they had to our fight, our political fight, our economic fight, our spiritual fights. I mean, I see people from the Médé here. I see people from the Native American Church here. And I think it's important that we acknowledge and show respect to these men and women for their walk, because this is where this is where our sacred stories, our creation stories, rest and are protected, and this is where they're shared. And everything that we are as Anishinaabe comes from our understanding of our creation story. The Nandakata Wenjige, how we come to think the way we think about our world. And that's important. And also, these places, these pretty important sacred and spiritual places also are the place where where our knowledge of how we should behave are taken care of. I hear time and again the importance of the 7 teachings. These teachings came to us from a certain place. Shared that with Wanabuju. Shared these teachings with Wanabuju. And these teachings explained or told us how we should walk our walk on this earth. And these places, these spiritual and these sacred places, also are the place where we get our knowledge about certain things, how we come to know certain things. These ceremonies are pretty fundamental to how we learn things. And I want to share a little bit about, probably my first year as a young Indian Act chief at Saging. And I want to share this, because for me, it became really a defining moment in my life personally and my political life. But, before I do that, there's so many people here, like I said, I grew up respecting people like Ernie Daniels, Vince Pierre, George Monroe. I see Henry Travers there, Dave Rundle, Phil Painter, Florence. These guys stood at the front line of the fight for so long, And I always, like I said, I always admired. I was a young guy seeing these guys when they were in leadership positions. And they still take the fight. They're here. I was at the table sharing some stories about when I was young. And You know the importance of Inakinegewen, Anishinaabe Inakinegewen, Anishinaabe law. Anishinaabe debate this one to be in control of your own life, to be self-determining. Sovereignty. Again, Inakinegewen. No one, no government, no, and this is no disrespect to any white people. No white person ever gave us that right. It was our Kijimenetu gave us that right. But for some reason we've been, we've kind of relinquished some of that right and some of that Creator-given opportunity to do things for ourselves. It's like Elder George Monroe was saying, we're trying to fit in this box. And it ain't going to work. And I say it ain't going to work because it's not. And, we hear continually about nation-to-nation relations. Well, you know what? There isn't one nation. There's 32 nations across this country, across Manitou, okay? And each one of these 32 nations we have our own governing protocols. And we have, different creation story. We might have different ceremony. But at the end of the day, the commonality is that we're all Anishinaabe. We're people of this land. We didn't come from anywhere else. Kishimenetu placed us here. So I think that's important. That's important to keep in mind. I also want to say this. In terms of the difference between Aboriginal, because I hear this term Aboriginal right? We have treaty and Aboriginal rights, but the term, I really have a lot of difficulty with the term. Because what the term says, it's actually kind of a lukewarm acceptance. Yeah, it's government, it's white people saying, yeah, you know what, yeah, maybe you were here first. Yeah, we'll give you that. So we'll say you have some Aboriginal right. But we should be more certain. We should be more proud in terms of how we talk about our rights. We have primordial rights. Our rights, we derive these rights since the beginning of time. There's no doubt. There's no uncertainty. We know for a fact that we were here since the beginning of time. Mewe primordial right. So, in terms of my presentation today, I'm going to share. I have a lot of paper here, and I want to share this little story. I sat at a panel one time with Harry Wood during the AGI. There was developing the AGI, the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry Implementation program. So I sat with Harry Wood, and I was so impressed with this man. He had a lot of papers. He had a big pile of papers, and he was talking and he was talking and he was talking. And then I glanced over at his papers, and I realized that he didn't have anything written on his pages. And he was just talking, and I said, I asked him, why did you do that? He says, well, you know what? I have to show these people to make them think that I wrote a speech, but I didn't. So he was just like that was a gift. These gifts we don't acknowledge of our people. We talk about oral history, and we have speakers in this forum that are, they have this incredible gift, and they have this gift to be able to move from. Well, I'm an Ojibwe speaker, so to move from Ojibwe Muan back to English. I don't have that gift. I have to kind of if I'm speaking Ojibwe, when I have to kind of, and if I'm going to flip to English, I have to kind of change my mindset a bit. But you have people here that can just seamlessly move, from language to language. And that's the essence of our worldview as well, is our ability to, to speak our language. That's the doorway into our worldview. So, I'm going to speak a little bit about Ugmao and just what this, what this governance means to me, or what Anishinaabe governance means to me. I'm going to talk a little bit about sovereignty as well, Inakinege, our ability to Inakinege, and speak a little bit about self-determination, Diben. So, as I said, I was elected Zenyanak Chief in Sagin in 1987. The community was pretty divided, when I came to office. There was no parade or anything like that, and you as a young guy, you get elected to this position, you think, there's going to be all kinds of adulation your way, but there wasn't any. The band Sagin was in receivership, the ultimate penance for trying, of government to punish our people, because normally when you talk receivership or co-management, it's the very poor that are punished, that shoulder all this, the burden of paying off this debt. Children suffer. Single parents suffer. Anishinaabe, they suffer too. So that's the ultimate penance, right? For those of you that have been involved in Indian Act councils, you know that. So there was no adulation, and this is the power, or the power that the Department of Indian Affairs thinks they have. So our first day in office, because we were in receivership, there was no electricity at the band office. And so we had our meeting, and we came to office like late spring, so it was still kind of damp, cold, and it's dreary. And we had no electricity. And then that day we came to office, welfare was supposed to, social development was supposed to have been paid. But the department, to show this new council that they meant business, didn't come to provide, to disperse the payments. They didn't. So you had people lining up, people milling around the band office, really upset with council. Why? We heard, first day in office, why did we elect you SOBs? Why did we elect you useless bunch of people? The council, we were relatively young. We decided that day we were never going to let the department have that kind of power or hurt our people again. So once we got established, once we got some footing, we asked the department to come again. But what I also asked at that time was our lawyer to come, our legal counsel, and our constable. And there's a reason behind having the legal counsel there, because what we were going to do was a lot different. So when the Department of Indian Affairs came, we had them sit down, and then I asked the constable, the late Willie Arkinson, Willie, read the charges and arrest them. Willie Arkinson got up, read them the charges, and arrested them for a breach of trust breach of fiduciary, and breach of treaty obligation. And these people said, well, you can't do that. I said, well, we can do anything we want. This is our jurisdiction. This is our territory. Little did we know that as well that a message got out to regional office here that we had taken these workers, like we took them hostage, and that was one of the reasons why we had the legal counsel there, to make certain that we didn't breach any. We put them under house arrest. And people at that time, and again, Anishinaabe law or Aboriginal law is kind of a gray area. But we know within our jurisdiction, it's our people that have the power, because the only time, and this, I grew up learning this. I mean, you see signs in some of our communities, no trespassing. The only time federal law can come into our community is murder, grand theft, sexual assault. That's the only time. So we were under this weird structure. We were able, you know, we exercised our right, our jurisdictional right to make charges and to make arrests. We also did that as well. Actually, the same constable with when Jean Chrétien was in the community. Willie Arkinson caught him for speeding, or the person I was driving for speeding, and he says, "You can't do that. Don't you know who I am?" And Willie quickly responded, "Well, if you hit a child, or if you got into an accident, you sure as hell wouldn't want people to know that you were that you had hit a kid or you created an accident." So that's another example. And this is kind of an interesting thing too, in terms of we know sheriffs come into our communities to repossess goods and what have you. You know, if you have time payments, you don't make your payments because sheriff come into our communities. So anyways, in this instance, it was a Friday afternoon. People were off to lunch. I get this call. Well, I was sitting in the lobby. So phone rings, I pick it up. And this lady's really upset at the other end of the line. "Where's that bloody chief?" I said, "You're speaking to him. It's Jerry." "Oh, well, what gave you the right to let the sheriffs into our community?" I said, I had no understanding. I didn't know that the sheriffs were there. So I had our constables go and ask the sheriffs to leave because they were trespassing. So what happened? The sheriffs were there with the RCMP. The RCMP were there as peacekeepers. So the constable, Willie Arkinson, again he gave me a call. "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Arrest them for trespassing." So he arrested them for trespassing. And the RCMP got involved and said, "You can't do that." Constable Arkinson calls again. "The RCMP are not letting me do that." "Well, arrest them too for obstruction of justice." So the RCMP were arrested as well. And the interesting thing about this, the Attorney General's office moved pretty quick, because within a certain number of minutes, the Attorney General's office was calling. But what we were doing, we were exercising our law. We were exercising all of the rights and power that we had within our jurisdiction. And the RCMP really had no right to be in the community. And from that point forward, anytime the RCMP had to came into our community, they either had to be with one of our constables, or they didn't come into the community at all. I only have 5 minutes, so yeah. But I'm just going to, in terms of child and family, I teach at the University of Winnipeg, Indigenous Studies. So yesterday, one of the classes, in our second to last class, we talked about child and family. I mentioned to them that I was speaking at a child and family conference today. And you have, in the class, you have a lot of non-Anishinaabe kids. I mean, they're kids from different backgrounds. But these kids understand that the families are being strangled. Like they asked, in your opinion, why do the children, when they're apprehended, why do they have to leave their home? Why is the child punished? And as soon as the child is apprehended, the system doesn't work to bring the family unit together. It works to keep it separate. These young people see that. And I was talking to Yvonne from Washagamish, actually. She's been working with the system for a little bit. So I said, well, what do you think about this? And she says, you know what? We should get rid of this. We should try and step out. And this is what George Monroe and Ernie Daniels are talking about, stepping outside of this box and doing things on our own. And I mentioned the Midewin, and I mentioned the Native American Church, because they're the keepers of our ancestral knowledge. I very seldom use the word traditional as well, because when you use that word traditional, it kind of implies that anything that we do, and this is what the narrative, and this is what the mainstream narrative, anything that we do is going to die because it's traditional, because things evolve. So we have to start changing as well how we, how we refer to things. Anyways, these, this is where we're at, and I want to be very respectful to the people that are, to all of you that are, because you're working with a system, and in the eyes of these young men and women that I teach, the system is broken. It's not our system for the most part. We don't use custom. We don't use teachings. We don't use ceremony. We don't use any of that. We get the authority to do apprehensions, to strangle our family from a government that's not ours, that's not representative of ours. So this is what the Ben Dizwin, Inakine Gewin is all about. It's about being able to make the decisions on our own, or for ourselves. This is what sovereignty is about. It's not about, we shouldn't surrender anything. And, I used to be quite proud of Saging and their, the fact that it was non-mandated. One of the only non-mandated agencies when I was the Indian Act chief there. And it wasn't because of it wasn't my doing, but that's just the way they structured. And the fact that they were non-mandated meant that they didn't apprehend children. And government, for whatever reason, it's a logic that defies me. Like, I don't understand why government thinks, federal and provincial, think that they can control they control how we see our future. And our future is about these children. I hear horror stories of young children going to the system at 1 month, aging out at 18, 19 years old. In the system for 18 bloody years. And I don't think anyone in Ottawa or at the legislative building has the authority, to say or to tell us they know what's right for our kids or our communities or our families. It's not, it's not right. But if I can just finish off with this. I mentioned I came to office in late Indian Act office in late 1980s. We kind of had a raucous start. I asked the elders, Chinishnabek, well, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this division? And one of the things they told me, and it was important that it was important to them that I hear this. What we were going to do to change how we did things was ceremony. And I said, well, what kind of ceremony are you speaking of? They mentioned about Chiskan. The shaking tent. And I'd never been to a Chiskanning before. I'd never been to a shaking tent. So one of the elders was co-hosting at his home. The night of the Chiskan, there was a big storm, and like it was raining and it was windy and it was cold. And the elders that were there asked, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't know. We'll go and talk to the Chiskan and we'll go and see the shaking man. I went to him and I said, well, what are we going to do? And he kind of smiled. He says, boy, you got to do things the right way, the Indian way. You want to have the shaking tent tonight? Kinama. Well, you want it tonight or tomorrow? So, well, it says, boy, it's it's raining really hard. He says, well, no. So, well, we'll have it tomorrow. He says, Hamsa, kina nishugumakan. Because so that's what we did. We had the ceremony the next night. But I just want to say this. So in the ceremony, council was told how we were going to conduct ourselves. We were told to have community assemblies every season. So be born winter, spring, summer, and fall. We would assemble for 4 days. And at these assemblies, chief and council wouldn't say anything the first day. Chief and council would listen to the people. It would be the people that would, again, it's about community. So if you have an issue with the community in terms of the direction of the community, you should be able to voice that. And you shouldn't have anyone interrupting. So first thing, people would come in. Obviously, people are angry. Sometimes people can be angry. Sometimes people can be distrustful, mistrustful. So we listened. Second day, we started prioritizing the issues. So we get a plan. We look at what to focus. Third day, how are we going to resolve those issues? And again, chief and council are not having any say in this. All we're doing is listening. Fourth day, chief and council talk. And the reason for that is to show that we were listening and that we would follow the direction of the community. This essentially is, well, because we're an Ojibwe Anishinaabe community, it's an Ojibwe Anishinaabe Inakanege process. So everything that we did from that point forward came from the Chiskan. And I have to say, it came, like I said earlier, it became to be a pretty defining moment in my life. Because you put trust and you put faith in something that you can't see. You can't touch. You can't taste, but you can hear. So, and I thought at that time, before we actually started the shaking tent, I thought, boy, I'm going to I'll probably be out in one term. But I ended up being there for the next 10 years. And the point of all of that, I guess, is just basically we have to trust. We have to trust our people. We have to trust our stories, and we have to trust our own plan. So I think that's that's what I wanted to share. I know it's not. Really focus on child welfare, but boy, your jobs are tough. I don't envy you. And I think leadership, is dealing with two systems, two levels of government that are constantly changing. They're like shapeshifters, these governments. And some will say that they're our friends and will tell us that with a smile on their face. They're pretty difficult to handle because I think it's a distraction for the most part. And then you have some governments that damn well that they're not. They're not going to support whatever we suggest, and they'll do everything in their power to put barriers in our place. So. With that, I'll say migration. Before I say, I said I would acknowledge Miles Crochet. He was a council member at Saging for a number of years. I see Councillor Henry Swampy over there. And Dave Rundle. Vince Pierre, Henry Travers. I saw Mona Gordon walk in. Mona's from Laxo, very involved in bringing community or ancestral law, Ojibwe Anishinaabe into what the community does, both from a child welfare way and a governance way. So with that, I'll turn it back to my cousin, my older sister. She's Makwa. To them gave how many gwech?
Thank you very much, Jerry.
I'll take my blank papers.
A world of knowledge. So much he has shared. Just to really appreciate the message of we need to know where we come from in order to know where we are going. And in that process, that it's part of our relationship with our identity. So it's a lot of very valuable information and very seasoned information. Jerry has been around for a very long time, fighting for the people. So thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much. We'll give him another hand. I just want to go for that. Our next speaker is a young couple, our elders, Florence and Philip Painter. And I've known them for many years, as many of you probably have known them. If you have the fortunate experience to meet them, being in Manitoba and Winnipeg. They both have a background in education as well as traditional ceremony and community development from our First Nations perspective. And they're sharing a presentation on the impacts of child welfare on grandparents. So if you'd like to give them a warm welcome, I'll call them up to the podium.
Bonjour, Dene Maganak, Aquego, Gapmigagi Sama, Kadibenjigat, Miwachkimigo, Onjip Madiswin, Anishnabe Madiswin, Kagip me in on yang, Ejanishnabe yang, Inge Janishnabe Wendamang, Janishnabe Mede, Damang, Tabita, Mishomis. I want to acknowledge, first and foremost, the Creator for all of life. And I say thank you for my life. And I want to acknowledge my spirit name, which is Ojoshko Bineshikwe, but I also carry another name that has been my work, working with the environment and speaking on behalf of Mother Earth. I'm from the Bear Clan, and we ask to be on the agenda. And you know why we ask to be on the agenda? Because we as great-grandparents, grandparents, have had some stories that we want to talk about today, because I know that our families, our loved ones are caught in the system. And whatever reason they are caught in the system, yeah, you know that we have so many challenges as Anishinaabe people, so many things that we allow the government to be the decision makers. We have been fighting on behalf of our great-grandchildren, and some of you may have seen them in the building. I want to acknowledge all the people that have helped us in the process. the Grand Chief was always behind us. And if I need that trump card, I know where to go, I know who to seek. But also we want to say thank you to the hardworking support workers from the agencies that are sent to monitor the visits. And as grandparents, we had our visits monitored. The family that we're going to be speaking about is probably a typical situation in most of our families, and why they end up in the system. My granddaughter has lived with us for 18 years, since she was 18 years old, I mean. And she has 2 children, our great-grandchildren, and their ages 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. And this is our story. Based on their experience, they're all caught in the system at this point. And we have advocated, we have spoken, and will continue to speak on behalf of our children. Not only mine, but everyone else's. So when I called Cora, yeah, you know, Cora, we are your advocates. We are your voice. We have an experience, a reality that we are experiencing ourselves as grandparents. So the title of the presentation is the CFS system and the impacts on grandparents. Of course, any of our family members are going to be impacted. We can look at all of our families and know it's going to impact all of us and all the people that we know and we care for and we love. In April of 2019, I was hospitalized. I went in with a complaining about a sore stomach. And when they were processing me, I guess they found some irregular heart readings, you know. So I got treated for open heart surgery. So I have a new heart. I have a new energy. And because we are proud to say that yesterday at 4, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren were brought home. So they're here. They're here, but that's only the first step. And I want to share our journey. When we were doing the checks, you know, they're very diligent on the checks. And we have a 40-year span of where there's a record of every phone call that was made to CFS agencies. And 3 of those recorded calls were mine. And they were mine because I wanted to make sure that the families were raising our children in an appropriate way. And I was seeking, well, maybe you can talk to the mom and dad. Give them a little shake-up, right? That's what I thought, okay? So last Friday, we had an assessor come to our house, and the guy came in with a page and a half of our involvement with organizations, maybe for counseling that we had sought, and maybe because of cases that were open and cases that were closed. It gave me a reality check. And after the assessment and after the assessor left our house, I sat there so totally depleted. And my husband was sitting by the love seat, and I said to him, "My love," I said, "I think we just blew our chances of ever getting our greats back with us. Just blown off the water because of all the history of my family that has been recorded. I know it's important for checks. They're important because we have multi-layers of trauma that has happened to our people. And we are no exception. And when he came in and he said, "Sit down," and he was going through his papers and recorded times, recorded dates, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I was thinking, and really getting more scared of losing that chance. But I was forced to go back in my memory and remember the incidences that involved our one daughter, and that involved one of our, the oldest of our children. And one of them, when they had that zero tolerance level, his partner, and he raised his kids. He was a single dad. And of course, we had to have child and family services involved. Because it's something that just happens, it just happens. And I always believed that they were there to help our people. In particular, when we look at the social workers of being our own people. But you know what? I feel sorry for them because try as they might, they're governed and they have to follow process and protocol. And I'm sure it hurts them as well as it hurts us as families to have our children apprehended. And they had a case file open on my granddaughter. And they were on the safety protection plan, and they lived with us. And when I was sick, and I was in the hospital, I went in for March 26. I went in, and I didn't come out till April 26. I was hospitalized at the time. And some of those times, my family have told me that I had 8 machines going all around me to keep me alive. And it is our people that raised their pipes, that prayed for us, and that relied on the Creator for my wellness. I had no idea, because I went into a state of coma. And before all of this happened, while I was still in the hospital and they were doing a lot of MRIs, you name it, I had it. I had to go to make sure that before the surgery was set, that I was okay to withstand the surgery. When we were at the hospital, my family, I have 3 adult children. The oldest lives in the city, and the youngest also lives in the city. And I have a daughter that lives up north, and she is too a social worker, but works in the school system. My adult children, I can say, follow our footsteps, and they have attended ceremonies, and they have started to help our people in the same way that we've been doing since the early 80s. The grandchildren, some of them, do their own feasting and ceremonies whenever they need that kind of help. But when you're caught in the system, it's very tough, very tough. And apprehension happened early April. And it was a decision that we, as a family, decided. My son is a single parent, and he lives on his own, and he's paralyzed one side, so I know he was totally out of the question. My daughter that lives in the city is a child care provider, but they would not even consider her because she was in a 1-bedroom apartment. She's finished raising her children. When apprehension needed to happen, we looked at our families. I have 2 remaining sisters. One's older than me and a younger one. And my youngest one is 68 years old, and she's on dialysis. So she's out of the question. My older sister uses a cane, and she does a lot of work with the school system as well, trying to bring back a lot of this sanity back into our Indian heads and Indian hearts. Things that need to be in there, and I thank Jerry for acknowledging that knowledge that needs to be there with our families. I say thank you to the support workers because It was the support worker. You know how they keep track of all the visits, monitor what is discussed, what we talk about, and all that. That's all monitored. And I was so happy she was there, because when my little girl, you know, the 5-year-old, she was, we were sitting down coloring, and just as a matter of fact, you know, just coloring. And she said, "Aniko, I was coloring." And my auntie, who's the foster mom, came in and grabbed her paper, and she said, slapped me on my hand, and she's reenacting everything that was done to her, right? And the minute or the second that she was telling us about the inappropriate discipline, the support worker was already calling the social worker. So we have some things that are happening that are also good once your children are in the system. So I was happy, and I acknowledged the work that she had done on our behalf. And we met with the agency, and we met with different workers. And when I started to get better, I started calling and trying to set up a meeting for our next steps. You know, and I'm blessed with people around me. I have lawyers that we have befriended one another, and they were visiting me when I was recovering. They came to my house, and they were asking, "So how's little Florence?" Because everybody seems to know my little Florence. She's my namesake. And I said, "You know what? It hasn't been really good for the Florence and her little brother. They're in the system right now. And we've been trying to get them back, but because of my health, they're not looking at us." And I was told that when we were talking about apprehension, I was in the hospital, and they told us that the only way they can the only way they can give us support as a family is if the children are apprehended. And what a big mistake we made. But they had a case open, and we had to follow the protocols, the processes, the regulations that were in place. And at the time of apprehension, they told us that the parents had to be out of the house and couldn't be there. Parents were left homeless for about 3 months because and I couldn't understand that. Yeah, you know, the kids are not going to be at home, so why would you make us send our parents to go live out on the streets and couch serve wherever they could find a spot? And the case plan that was provided is just like this, right? In point form. And one of the things in the case plan was to find a place where they could be. They found a place. It was a house, and it was $1,200. And in the meantime, the parents have gone from depression. They've gone through being in trouble with the law. The father of Tay, and he now is waiting for trial. And he's saying that he's innocent. He was at a place at the wrong time. But he has to wait. And I hear the systems are really backed up now. The mother moved back with us. She can afford a $1,200 on her own, being single. So she lives with us, and she has never missed an appointment to go visit our children, our grandchildren, which was first in the office, limited to 2 hours a day, 2 hours every 2 weeks. And then in the last month, we were allowed to have visits at our house, but interchanging from our home to the office. And at those times, they would be a support worker to come and supervise the visit. Now, you know that when she told me about the inappropriate discipline, she was re-traumatized because she had to repeat her story at least 2 more times. And the sad part is that I would have thought that, here, take your children. We know who you are. We have respect for what you do. But that wasn't even a consideration. So we tried our best. We tried to advocate on our own, working with different people at different times. And Cora, the child advocate, helped us navigate, helped us with supports in how we can take a full page of conditions and chunk it into little workable pieces, so it's not so overwhelming. You know, because if you give them a full page, and I could see reviewing her case plan, which we had trouble trying to get access to as well, and it had changed because it had gone from the other program to the other one. And in that process, we also lost the person that was helping the family with their issues. And I said, like I said, was a good plan. We were part of that plan. We were incorporated in there. You know, and when she was telling us about her story, I tried not to sound alarmed, you know. And I said, does anything ever happen to your little brother? And she said, yes. My uncle yells and screams at him when he cries. He's only a baby. And when that was reported, and then we had all that stuff happening in a very fast rate. We met with with the workers and everybody that was in the meeting, and we weren't there. We were told to stay longer, and we could have a visit with the kids a little bit longer till the meeting was done with the foster dad, which the children were calling uncle. And when the authority came in, and they said, or he said, everybody's so shocked, everybody's so surprised. I said, you know, a little kid that's only 5 years old does not know how to lie. They don't know how to lie. And I think by you saying that, you're re-traumatizing us as a family again. You know, believe what people share. Believe what the children share. And you better take this very seriously, because I think it's serious. We love those children very deeply. We are the only home that they have known, right from the hospital and taken to our home of safety. And as a matriarch, I make sure my families look after their children in a good way. And if we have to help them, yeah, you know, we do. And if we suspect any drug or alcohol use, I will tell them, write me a list of the stuff you need, and we'll go shopping ourselves, and we deliver. We deliver, because we don't want that little gap of, you know, them using their money in another way. So we're always careful. We've been on it, you know. You know, one of the other traumas that I want to share is that and they did meet with the foster dad while we were at the agency, and they took them back to the same place. And they told us the kids would be back in about 2 to 3 days, but they had to do all this pre-clearance and all that, you know, and that was so disheartening. And I thought, well, why couldn't we have been the place of safety? We held a license when our late son passed away, and when the mother came to us and asked if we can look after her children for a little bit. And we did, I think, for 6 months, we looked after. That's in the record. Everything that we've done as a family is recorded, which is okay, but you know what? It was intimidating, really intimidating. You know, in our early lives of our marriage, we had some issues where we had to seek out help. That's even in the record, and that's when I said to him, oh, I don't think we stand a chance. So I went to bed so depressed at night, I actually cried myself to sleep. That's the impact. And our parents that lose their kids to the system, they probably do the same thing. And we've heard of people taking their own lives. And we've heard of people attempting because they had no hope. They lost hope. Well, that afternoon, I just about lost hope, and I said, no, you can't. You have to keep going. You have to keep fighting. And like I said, it's taking them from the 14th to yesterday to be able to arrange for them to come home to our house. And what a celebration we had with them, you know, because the worker put the older one on the phone as they were going to be arriving in 20 minutes. So we were just sitting tight and, you know, we'll believe it when they're right, they're right. And so they're here, and I'm just so happy. But that's only the first step, because the granddaughter, the parents still need to go for that full page of stuff. And you know, she had gone and did some programming, and she has gone, and we have done some traditional, our own way of doing things. We've done that for her and with our families. So we try and remain strong as a unit. But because of the case, lots of our cases are left open. So that undermines everyone's ability to be able to step in and help us look after the children. And what I said is that surely there must be some preventive measures in place that you can give support to while I'm in the hospital and while I'm recovering. But again, I was told the only way we can do it is through apprehension. So after talking with our families, that was the decision that we made as a family. No. Very tough. I just need to make sure that I'm covering my little notes here. As a great grandmother, I have always advocated for my families. I initiated most of the meetings that happened, trying to get our grades back. My phone calls, my text messages, my whatever I could do went unnoticed. I called for the presence of the advocacy office, and I was so sad because you know what, they weren't allowed to come into the agency. An advocate not being allowed to go in. I think as agencies, you need to know that's important and very critical. So when families come there with advocates, you better accept the advocate, because sometimes, you know, we're too closely emotionally involved with our own that sometimes it's hard, and we need that support. And we had needed that support, and we got that support. And I really appreciate our Grand Chief, Cora, the agencies that were really trying to help us, our own people that are caught in the system. And I think the bottom line is that, you know, it's hard to relinquish $70,000, $80,000 job, right? Yeah. I gave up an $1,000 job when I retired, so I know how it feels. I know we have to make a lot of adjustments, you know. We have, I know that it was mentioned that these gifts of our children are only on loan to us. So we have to look after those gifts. And in my illness, you know, on the day that apprehension happened, we had made recommendations that the children be kept together. The children, if we needed to separate them, the little one is going to go with the paternal great-grandmother. And she was disallowed because she had a case open as well. My niece stepped forward, and she works in the system too. She's in the CFS. And she said, I will look after little Florence, auntie. And we had the freedom to visit Florence every weekend, and we did that. If I couldn't go, he would go with the remainder family members that wanted to go. You know, in this process, my little guy received a name, a spirit name, and by being involved, they were supposed to be home on Monday, so there was a lot of uncertainty still there. And then I kept calling all different times whenever we had breaks to find out, well, when are they coming home? Is anyone gone to pick them up? And Monday I was told there wasn't anyone that could make that journey to bring them home. So we had to wait another day. And you know, for you that have gone to residential school, you know, on the last day when we would be in residence, there's this excitement. Nobody sleeps, right? And nobody sleeps. Yeah, I know you know. Yeah, because we've all experienced that. Just so happy to get home. Just so happy because we'd be going home the next day. I don't think any of us slept. That's how it felt. That's how it felt. 2 nights of that old sad feeling of knowing that they're going to make it home. And you know what? I never gave up. We never gave up as a family. And I don't think we should give up. Yeah, you know, the legalization, litigations that exist don't benefit us. And I think there were lots of speakers that spoke about our sovereignty, a lot of speakers that spoke about our need to stand together and move forward. You know, even as social workers, I always think and say to people, think from your heart, Anishinaabe heart, Midday heart, Midday mind, you know, and we would never lose sight. And because we are all different at different levels, different impacts of whatever we have experienced as a people. I think this is a good example. I know people might think that, oh yeah, she's very well educated. She follows the traditions or the teachings of our people. But here I am standing in front of you, sharing a story from a grandparent journey. My family's journey has been difficult and will continue to be difficult because our granddaughter needs to fulfill those commitments. No. And I thank you for the opportunity that was provided so we can share our lived experience. But I am so sure that it's a very familiar story of our children in care caught in a system. So I want to again say thank you to the Creator for giving me the strength, for giving me my health. And now I ask each and every one of you, when you think, when you're praying, pray for us so we can have the energy of a young mother and a young dad, because that's who we become. Yeah. Again, miigwech, I say thank you for listening.
That was 56 minutes. So I'll have to match that. I think that I just keep my mind short. I wanted to say that traditional child rearing has been in place for a long time. At my reserve in Norway House, I saw it in the 50s when my older brother and my cousin were raised by my grandfather and my grandma. And I used to envy them because they were always getting new clothes and popcorn. But you know, I'm doing the same thing to my grandchildren. Our first grandchild, we raised him until he was 5. And one night, our grandson said, "Grandma, I love you, but I want to go home, back to my mother." So my wife wanted me to take him home right away. That was about midnight. So anyway, I convinced her to wait, and he went back so that he could go to school. And I want to talk about spirit names, because that's where we get our strength from. My name, Okimapinesi, tells you that I am boss, I am king, like of my home. You can ask my wife, with her permission, she'll tell you I am king. But that name more or less tells you what you're going to become. Your spirit will be the one to talk to the medicines that you pick, to the spirits that sit in the four doorways. When they hear your name, they will come and they will listen to you right away. When my great-grandchildren were taken from home, I did not give up. I prayed for them every morning. In the morning, I would face the grandfather's son, and I would talk to grandfather, and I would talk about my great-grandchildren. My little Florence, her name is Okumapinesi Kwe, and my little grandson, great-grandson, his name is Makati Kinu. And as soon as he was named, that's when we saw the light, I guess, that they were going to come home. We never lost hope. Just like my nephew, Jason, his name is Petuitang. He received that name in ceremony. And Petuitang, like, you're going to be hearing about him. His teachings will be known all over. And he was sitting here somewhere, Jason Whitford, but he's well known already. The work that he does is good. So that's the spirit that gave him that name. So when you are asking for a name, get it done in ceremony. One of my grandsons working in Towson at a pizza place, when he was born at the Women's Center, they told us, take him home. He's gonna maybe live 2 weeks, and then he can die at home, or else you can leave him here and let him die here. So what are you going to do? So we told the doctors, give us our grandson and we'll take him home with us. So we took him, got some blankets, tobacco, and right away we took off to Russell River to go and see our teacher. His name was Herman Atkinson at Russell River. So he was living in a little shack, and he asked us, "What brings you over here?" So we told him our grandson is supposed to die in 2 weeks. But he said we want him to remain with us. So we gave him tobacco and gifts. And we asked him, "Can you speak for us?" So he took his pipe shaker and he smoked his pipe. And then he took a shaker and started chanting. And then when he finished, he said, "That spirit that sits in the north, Kiwitin Kapo, is the one that accepted your tobacco." And he said, your grandson is going to grow up to be a big, strong man. He'll never be sick in his life. And today, our grandson must be about 270 pounds, over 6 feet tall. And just like Herman said, he's 28 years old now, I think. But the names that you get will give you that what you need, and that's what we did with our great-grandchildren. Just wanted to share that with you. I know that, you must be hungry.
so sorry. Thank you so much. We have a gift for you. Megan. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Megan has a gift for you. Thank you so much, Philip and Florence Painter. You know, they've carried a lot of weight of the community, and they shared a personal story that no one of us is exempt from the impacts of the CFS system. They're very powerful, beautiful elders, and they've carried for a number of years the community here in Winnipeg, as well as communities in Manitoba. So again, in honor of Philip and Florence Painter, can you please give them another hand? We just have some quick announcements. There's glasses left in the Smudge Cultural Room. They may belong to Amanda. And just a quick announcement, Jingle Mingle, Friday, December 13th, 6 p.m., RBC Convention Center. And that's hosted by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. And it's $160 a ticket, $1,500 a table of 10. And there's a after dinner dance, $35 in advance, $40 at the door. And you can get the tickets via Tricia McKay at manitobachiefs.com. So you can put that in your search engine, Manitoba Chiefs. They'll have a jingle mingle, a lot of fun. Do you want to speak to this? And then we'll call Cora up. And then about queuing the speaker and coming to the room.
I'll get you to come back and do that. So for our breakout sessions, we have the Family Reunification and Assistant Advocates in room 4A. That's just around the corner there, as you know. And how do we get there? In 4B. And EVTC Youth Program in the South and 5 West. And then talking about Jordan's Principle in 6 West, which is just around the corner, as you know. Enjoy your meal. We also have this earring here while everybody's here. It's a little heart-shaped earring, a little beaded earring. If you're missing one, it's here. So check your ears and see what's up.
Nibbled it off.
I didn't nibble it off.
I'm married.
I'm married. I did not nibble off anybody's earring. So if you're missing this earring, come get it. We have it here.
Okay, just to let everybody know, we do have presentations by families in 5 minutes. And I know that people need sometimes a break, but please come back to your seats at least 5 to 1. We have another speaker and we have some more amazing presentations. And we want to be able to ensure that you get the full package. I know it's a lot of information to process, and everybody's feeling really good about carrying this bundle of information. I would call it a bundle of knowledge. Thousands of years of information was shared from all across the land with you, and it's our honor to bless this in our way and in our blessings. We are the prayer that our ancestors prayed. The tobacco has already been passed. So thank you so much for your beautiful ways, your beautiful presence. And again, we remind you to come back into the room at 5 to 1, and we'll continue on this afternoon. Okay, miigwech. Whoops.
Okay, a little reminder that we do have a smudge room. So if you need some support, you need to just cleanse yourself. There is an elders room just not too far from here, just past the escalators. So if you need the smudge, it's there. Okay? If you need anybody to help you out, let us know. We'll get you there. Thank you.